Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Concept Dash. And today, what we're going to do is to go over a very quick tutorial in writing a script to check system status. So, for what we'll be using today, we'll be using uh, the Anaconda Navigator. This is a very, very good tool to use whether you're on uh, Mac OS, Windows, or Linux. For this tutorial, I'll be using the Linux version, and we'll be using Spider. So let's get that up and running. On Linux, it does take quite a few minutes to start running. Let's try it again. There we go. And so when you're up and running, you'll be presented with the interface. And so we'll just do a new file. It will open up in the temporary uh, file. So for this one, if whatever you create in the temp.py, whenever you close the application, it will disappears. So we'll create a new file, and for checking system status, we'll be using the Python module called psutil. If you are like me and using the Anaconda version, then psutil will come pre-installed. But if not, you can always go on uh, pypy.org and search for psutil. I think the latest version is 5.8.0, and I think that's as of December 2020, right? So the command to install that using pip, it would be pip install psutil. Okay, so back to Spider. I am using Python 3.8. I think as of today, there is Python 3.9, and I also believe that Python 3.10 is currently in beta status. You can research that to confirm if you're interested. And before we go any further, let me also remind you guys, please like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Let me know what you think as we move forward in creating new informative content. So let's go ahead and install psutil. And just for this, I'll only be using psutil for this tutorial. So if you want to check system status, if you know what you want to check, say for example, uh, we want to know the amount of CPU cores that the system currently have. Amount of CPU cores. So psutil does have a very intuitive function for that built in uh, called CPU count. So actually, let me make this a bit simpler. So import psutil as ps, and so we could do something as a cores equals ps dot cpu underscore count, and then another thing we could also check is the CPU status. So we could check the CPU status. So to do that, let's create a variable called stat, and we'll say psutil dot cpu underscore That's uh, another thing we could check is CPU timing. All right. So for CPU timing, we do psutil the CPU underscore times. Another thing we could also check is the amount of memory, the amount of memory you have available on the system, the amount used, and we could also do swap memory as well, especially if you're using a virtual machine. So let's do variable vmem and let that be ps dot. I think the command for this would be virtual memory. Yep. And then for swap memory, the command will be so swap mem. For swap memory, I think the command is actually psutil dot swap. I think it's swap underscore memory. Yep, there we go. You could also check uh, system temperatures. Uh, when it comes to system temperatures, if you're using a virtual machine, then you will not get a value. But if you're doing this on this physical system, then you will get a response. So to check system memories, we'll be using something called sensors, right? So let's do temp equal psutil. So this would be psutil dot sensors, and what we'll want is the temperatures. As you see, you could do the fan and the battery as well. For this, we'll just leave the temperatures. And let me just clean this up a little bit. There are various other things you can actually do using psutil. You could uh, do process management, check the running processes. Uh, you could do memory maps. You can open files, etc. And another thing I do want to show you guys is the following. Using PS utils to get network information. Right? So using PS utils, let's do a variable net, and we say PS utils net underscore IO underscore counters. So what this does is that it returns a system-wide network input and output statistics as a named tuple. So it have information such as number of bytes sent, received, number of packets sent and received, number of errors you're receiving, the number of errors that are being sent out, and so on. So this command right here will give you that information. Another thing you can do is to use a command to return system-wide socket connections as a list of named tuples. So let's do that as well. So let's do sock equals psutils. And I think this one is net connections. Just confirm. Yep. So it'll be net connections. So let's go now and try to place all this information into a log file. So let's go ahead and create a log file for this. All right. So I will do this right on my desktop where I'll be saving this information. So I would say with open, and I'll call this system checker. I'll do .log since I'm using um, Linux on a virtual machine. You could simply just do a text file. It will be the same thing. In Linux, if I do .log, I can open .log with a text editor. That's the reason why I'll be using .log, but it really doesn't make much of a difference. All right, and we'll be writing to this file. So we do that as common F. And also, I actually want to show you this error. So let me just go ahead and do f dot write. And one of the first things we're going to write is course. Uh, Next, we do s dot write, and we'll write time. Then f dot write. And we write vmm. Moving on, we'll write swapmem. Next, we write temp. Next, the network information. And lastly, we would do socket information. Okay. All right. So we have an error, unexpected indent. Let's go back. It's fixed. And maybe it should go back by one. Do ensure that your indentations are meshed up. So after we're done writing, we'll do just close that file. So we'll do after close. Okay. So this bit of code looks seemingly accurate. However, I can tell you that that is not. And let's show you why. Let's first go ahead and save this to my desktop. I actually want to save this as system checker. And I'll actually save it in my documents folder. Okay. And let's run it. Let's see what we get. So we get an error, and it's a type error. And it says the right function argument must be a string, not an integer. Now, this is because psutils in pretty much all these commands, what it does is it returns you some integers, right? And so if we actually want this, what we could do is to just do a explicit conversion. So we're converting the result of what we get into a string directly. So I will do this for all of them. And for that string. Also on the network information. Once again, with psutils, it mainly gives you uh, information as integers, so you will want to convert those into a string in order to write it to a system checker if you're doing it the way I do it. All right. So with that, it does look more appropriate, and so we should be able to run this command without any errors. So let's go ahead. And as you can see, we did not receive an error, which means it's been successfully compiled. One thing we could do, we could open up our documents folder where I just saved the file. And we have our system log file here, where if we open it, it will open as lots and lots of information. So this is how we create this log file using psutil in Python. So at the top, we see that we have two CPU cores, which I'm using on this virtual machine. Give me CPU time information. It also gives me information about the sockets, uh, network information. I see my localhost uh, IP address and lots of other information that is there. So this is just a quick overview as to how to create your own personal log file to check your system status. If you do find this video informative, if you do find it interesting, if you feel like you learned something, also if you feel like you have something that you would like for me to cover for you, I would be happy to do that for you. Just leave a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. This is Concept Dash. I'll see you in the next one.